Hello everybody, good evening. Thank you so much for coming to what will be the first of our Asylum Talks lecture series. So these talks have been organised as part of the National City of Sanctuary movement, which for those of you that don't know, it's a campaign to build a culture of hospitality for people seeking sanctuary in the UK. So here in Exeter, we're working to bring together local businesses, organisations, services, the university and the college under a shared commitment to make the city more receptive and welcoming to refugees and asylum seekers. So each of these talks will be taking a different perspective on the asylum system, giving us a greater understanding of the sorts of issues that these displaced individuals face, both on an international and domestic level. So tonight we'll be hearing from Baraa about what it's like to be confronted with a refugee crisis on the scale as large as that faces Syria today. So Baraa is from Aleppo, which is a region in the northwest of Syria. And until he came to the UK, he worked as a food manager in a local charity kitchen, supporting some of those internally displaced individuals within Syria. So he came to the UK in September, and he is now a student of IT management in Exeter University. And he's very kindly agreed to join us tonight to help share his story and spread the word. So thank you everybody for coming, and let's join us in giving him a very warm welcome.
Thank you everyone. I'm Baraa, I'm from Syria. I was food manager for a charity kitchen which produces 30k meals a day for refugees in Aleppo. So, shall we start? Yeah. Here's what we're going through. First of all, I'm going to give you a bit of information about me, about what did I do, what was I doing before the crisis, and then about my country before the crisis, how was it, and then what happened during the crisis, and at the end some numbers and statistics about the current situation. I'm a computer science student. I used to study computer engineering in the University of Aleppo, but I was doing that just because it's socially more accepted, not because I wanted to work with my specification, because in my hometown it's more common that people work with their family properties, so I didn't even need a qualification. I was just going to work with, to put it on the wall and just work with our company, which is for trade, and we had also another factory for textile, but now they're all gone. Yeah. So I was totally responsible person with a $300 bill for mobile phone a month, and I didn't have any value or anything. I didn't care about refugees, about people, and I had so much lack of consciousness and awareness. I don't know if I'm having more of them now, but yeah, I was a totally different person, and I changed after the crisis, and yeah. Well, about my country, we have the capital, Damascus, which is considered one of the 5 best cities ever in the world, and it's very warm environment. I don't know if any one of you have been there or been in the Middle East, and majority of people there are so social and lovely and warm, just as in like the surrounding cities like Lebanon, there's countries like Lebanon and Turkey and Jordan. And there's a lot of cultures, religions there. I remember in my hometown there's like 3 beliefs and a lot of sectors. Like we have Arabs, Armenians, and Kurds. We have a lot of sects there. So also my country was well known for the education and for development, but that was a long time ago when we made our university, Dubai, which we know all now wish to go there. I was struggling with making the secondary schools, so we had like very high ranked universities, and during the last few crises in the Middle East, we hosted Palestinians, Lebanese and Iraqis during their crisis, provided them with everything, yeah, not in camps, like in the cities themselves. Yeah. This is some pictures from my hometown. This is Aleppo Castle, which my city goes back to more than 10,000 years old, and this castle is more than 4,000 years old. It was being attacked by many many forces before, but yeah, it's stayed stable as it is, and it's very famous. This is also a big mosque. It goes back to 10,000 years, which now is completely destroyed, and yeah, so This is one of the streets in my university. You see like a lot of lights. Now my hometown doesn't have electricity now at the moment. Yeah, so, yeah. This is also another picture for the bridge and the river at the night. Now let's talk about. I'll concentrate more about my hometown because yeah, I'm from there and I know more information. My city is more than 4,000 years old and different, as I mentioned already, different cultures and religions. We had the best textile factories among Syria and some of them among the world. Actually, my family's factory was the third factory to open in my hometown, and when it opens like in 1970s, it was one of the best factories in the Middle East. And people of my hometown are known for their hardworking and they have very good trading skills. So like all the other cities in my country come to Aleppo to trade because it was very known for the trade. And there's one problem in my city which is the main cause of the crisis now in my hometown. There was a very big gap between the city inhabitants and the countryside people because the countryside people had no education, they didn't work, they just didn't have opportunities, and the people of the city had the money, had the power, and they just used to buy a lot of lands there, and they go with their fancy cars to that places, so those people see them and they just feel like they're not equal, but yeah, it was just because of the lack of education for them. So, yeah. This is also one of my Aleppo city's old streets. Yeah. Now, when the crisis started in my country, my hometown started to give to host refugees, and not only host refugees, we started to distribute aids for other affected areas, like when Hama and I don't know if you heard about other cities like Hama and Homs. We used to send like the NGO I worked in served 23 tons of aids like to Hama when there's like rockets fell on it. So and we used to go there also to do first aids and yeah. The conflict after 2 years of the crisis, the conflict moved to Aleppo, and it started gradually. First of all, people were being kidnapped and asked for ransoms by the countryside people when they got the weapons, and then they wanted to revenge at some point because they thought that it's their right, and they started kidnapping people, stealing factories, burning and killing, and it was going to it was going worse and worse by the time. Actually, when the crisis began, people were displaced in Aleppo internally, so a lot of people who lived in the poor areas fled into the other areas. So we can see Aleppo was divided into two main sectors, one of them which was the rich areas and one of them is the population, the popular area. So people used to come to these places. I was living in one of these places, so I had to go with my friends to get the schools ready for the refugees. We used to wash the schools and put the blankets and take the Excel files for their details, and we used to also organize the rooms, the families. Yeah, there was a lot of work there. Sorry. Yeah, and when the first crisis happened in my hometown, people started to give a lot of food. Like I remember, I was managing one of the schools which contains 200 refugees, and the neighbor, one of the rich people around, came and he refused to give them money. He wanted to feed him just exactly what he eats in his house, and that was a lot of money. Like you could say around $10,000 a day. But people were really emotional and felt empathy so much, and they didn't know that it's going to last so long. They saw that it's going to be a month or two, that those people are going back to their home, but it took longer than it was planned. Yeah, could you? This is when the first crisis happened in my country. Places started to be bombed by Air Force, by people, by rebels, by all the kinds on the ground, without caring about citizens. I mean, from the beginning, from the moment the crisis began until now, nobody ever paid attention to citizens or people who are suffering there. Now, that's the street that I showed you before. Now it's turned into dust now, and everything is broken and burned. Yeah, this is also one of the very historical old places. It goes back to more than 1,000 years. Now it became like this. Yeah. And actually those pictures mean a lot to me because I took them with my camera. I went to some area and I saw this child. I was distributing food in the kitchen and I saw his toy. He was playing with this toy, and when I came for food he was holding this empty one, and he came to me and he was sad because I couldn't give him enough because I didn't have. I know I had to give on other people. So yeah, one of my friends took a picture for him, and it was really like, because I knew he wanted more. His family was like 10 people and I couldn't give him enough. So yeah, it feels so hard when you feel like there's people in need and you can't give them. And there's like here when you were doing activities for children, we took them to like a playground and like to reduce their suffering, and yeah, it was so good time. Yeah. Actually here also the crisis started to increase. Not only this, the countryside started to be bombed by ISIS, which recently came on the ground, and they started to fight against everyone, against the rebels, against the, like in the name of religion, they started to do horrible things like killing Christians, Muslims, killing everyone and terrifying people. And I remember here in one of the countryside areas, this woman was shouting because her daughter died in front of her eyes. The next picture shows a bit quite graphic images, so I don't recommend if people don't want to look, so you can just skip it. Yeah. Actually, this guy in the middle, he used to sell biscuits. He's the only guy who works for his family, and he was the only person who could give his mother money because his father already died. And one day of, I think 8 months ago, yeah, he was killed by a sniper shot, and I couldn't put the other picture of him here because it's pretty horrible, and yeah. And yeah, and this guy also working with his grandfather, and after their house was destroyed and all his family was lost, they were going to another camps in Turkey, I think. And this we call Mona Lisa of Syria. We call her this little girl. She was, I think, from Homs, and yeah, she was killed while there were exhibition for children activities in Syria. Yeah. Could you? Now I'll talk a little bit about the kitchen that I was managing. I was working with one of the NGOs since the crisis began, and I used to give help for people from other cities because my city didn't need help at the beginning. And after that, when the crisis moved to Aleppo, we started to give prepared food to the people. We started to buy food from restaurants with 7K meals a day. And then we thought that it's costing us too much and it's not ending soon, so we might have started our own kitchen. So I came up with the CEO of the NGO that I was with to start a kitchen with 7K meals a day, because it was so much cheaper and we knew that it's going to last longer, so we had to do that. Also, during my managing for the kitchen, not only me and all the volunteers were working as, like, I used to translate for UN organizations. I used to analyze the refugees' data, like we used to take all their data in case we need something. For example, if you wanted to build something, we know like how many constructors we have in their schools, so we can call them because it's cheaper and because we are already giving them help. Because like when the war was happening, like the civil society has to communicate with themselves in order to go, because we can't afford to pay like constructors from other, like, yeah. And I was also giving psychological support. I remember one time I was talking with people, like around 150 people in the big theater, and I was giving them psychological support. I told them that now we're having a bad days and we want to cope together, we should smile, we should think positively and so on. I don't want you to think about food and shelter only. I want you to think about being good, having good spirit. And then I was talking for 1 hour and a half, and after that I said, I would love to hear any questions of you if anybody has a question. And then some guy raised his hand, he said, oh, the food is not enough. And then I was like, okay, I know, but I'm talking about something else. I want you guys to have another spirit to feel good. So basically people there couldn't think about anything except food and shelter, and yeah, could you please? This is actually in Damascus. It's an Al Yarmouk camp, in Palestinian refugee camp. Those people are queuing for food because this camp was in the sea for more than, I think, 1 month and a half. So when aid arrived, people wanted to have their share, so they all queued up. So yeah, it happened last year, I suppose. Now, this is a bit of documentary about the kitchen. The kitchen started at 7 km, as I mentioned already, and now we were going through a picture showing that from the moment we started, from the moment the food comes to the kitchen to the moment it was distributed. We made the kitchen one of the school relief points because we couldn't afford to build a new kitchen or to go to some private kitchen. So could you please? First of all, the vegetables used to come and we take the numbers and count how much did it cost us, and then then we put it in the warehouse, preparing it for cooking. Actually, this amount were only for 1 day because the kitchen ended up doing 30k meals a day. So we needed a huge as much as amount of this every day to make the cooking because we used to cook for the whole town. Yeah, could you please? And this is potatoes, which is the very famous here. This is the gas bottles. Yeah. And we used to put the food here, and every tank used to feed around 100 people. Like we used to give 300 grams for the person, and if it was a big family, we used give them 500 grams for a person. Now we'll move to the cooking process when it becomes 15k meals. This is the big bottles which we do food in. Yeah. And those are the workers, which are all refugees, but we had a problem with that because we got a lot of corruption. Those people used to take more aids to their families, and you can't blame them because at the end they're all working. I remember one time we had a very big queue about they wanted to take food, and suddenly one old man came to me and he wanted to cross the whole queue to take food. And I thought if I gave him food, like all those people will shout because they don't understand that he's an old man and he should go because they're all old men also as well. So like I just could I refused his inquiry, and I just sent another one from the back and he gave him the win. But it was so difficult because it was a time when you see like everyone is in need and like you want to give everyone, but you can't because there's something like overcoming your abilities and your the opportunity to give the people the food. This when you used to finish cooking, you used to put the food in bags, plastic bags, and every bag used to go for a family. Like we had around 110 schools as a relief point, and every school contained 200 people, and also the university campus turned into relief points with a lot of medical points care, but they were very basic and very terrible. And could you? Also, we used to put them in a big plate. This is spaghetti, one of my favorites. And this is traditional Syrian food. And that was my office. I had to taste every day to show the quality of the food. And there was like I should taste from almost every one of these in order to I was feeling so full. But I miss those days because I can't cook so much here. Now we're going to the delivery part. Since we had like around 110 schools, every school had around 200 refugees, so one of those refugees had a car to come and pick up the food. So we used to manage and organize with the school, we can say like managers. We had volunteers from every school. They should not be refugees, so they can give us true information. They cannot to prevent corruption at the end. So every school's volunteer choose one of the refugees and send him to get the food, and he gets paid. So at the same time we were trying to provide them job opportunities, but at the end it's so hard, still so hard. So could you please? That's me with the other volunteers. I just used to decide how much every school should take regarding depending on the numbers that they used to give me. Could you please? This is the kitchen. These people are trying to get food. Actually, this guy turned to be one of the government guys, and he wrote a report that I was supporting the rebels, and he caused me a problem. But he was so good. He was showing me always that he's a good worker and so on. Could you please? And here's another car. The tanks used to be put in the car, and regarding to if we had like 3 schools in the same area, we used to put them in one car to save, because there were no petrol that time. Yeah, and there's like 5 cars for, I think that was for 20 schools. Yeah. Those are the food that we used to do. Yeah, that worker that I told you about, he brought me this heart and he told me that he loves me so much. Yeah, but it turns out that he really loves me. Yeah, so, yeah. And there's another kind of food. Yeah. Now, I will talk a little bit about the crisis. When the crisis happened in my hometown, all the people started to lose their jobs, houses, and families. Like even some people started to lose their minds because nobody expected it would happen. I mean, any one of us from Syrian people, if we were talking to each other and we suppose that we want to imagine what the worst would happen to us, we didn't have to imagine that. So people started to just think of like why this is happening to us, what did we do, who's doing what, and when is it going to finish. So people had really confusion, and there was a lot of traumatized people there, and I think 80% of people were affected financially, or like whether they lost one of their family members, or I don't remember. I don't recall talking with anyone of my friends or family, and he's not having a problem with like losing a friend or like not finding food, or yeah, even though like most of them were from wealthy families, from educated slice of the community. So after that, like after all this crisis happened, moreover people were losing their jobs. I mean, I said already that people were kidnapped for ransoms, and one of my friend's father, they kidnapped him and they asked for $500,000 as a ransom, and it's a lot of money there. Yeah, I mean, he wasn't sad because he paid it. He paid it at the end. He wasn't sad because he paid it. He could afford it because his job wasn't stolen or burned yet. But he was sad because he could help a lot of people in that money instead of giving it to some tourist people. And yeah, and during that, people who were giving help, like I remember. Do you remember the guy that I told you that he wanted to give food to people as much as he's eating in his house? I think that guy, one of my friends said that saw him selling vegetables on the street. I'm not sure if it's him to be true, but I know a lot of my friends and family members like used to drive Mercedes, and now they're living in they're renting houses, or they went to Turkey or they asked for migration or around Europe. And yeah, situation after it got worse and worse. Like I remember, I just got out of Syria 8 months ago, and I remember when I got out, there were no water, no electricity, no diesel, no petrol, no gas. Like the basics were really missing. I remember queuing for water I mean, I had money, and yeah, I mean, I could afford coming to Exeter. Of course, I can buy water, but the problem is that you can't find water to buy. You have to queue. Like the rich, the poor, the old, the young, all the people had to queue for water. So it was like really humiliating for all people, especially for the people who were like, I mean, I recall my uncle who lived all his life, like he was traveling around the world, and he lived a really good lecture life. And at the end of his age, he was like waiting for bread or waiting for water. That was really hard for me. I'm a young man and I can take it, but I thought that all people they were really, it was really hard for them to do that. And yeah, it's been 4 years since my hometown had 6 continuous hours of electricity. We had like 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the night, and we have to charge our mobiles, wash our clothes, heat the food, and like heat the water if there is water, and do whatever in those 4 to 5 hours in the day. Yeah, and the worst thing is that people got used to this life. I mean, it's really hard, and I remember now since I'm living in the UK, I just remember how was I living without water, without electricity, without anything. Now, I mean, even my sister, before she goes to Turkey, she had a little child, and my brother-in-law struggled very much to find food, milk for his child, and it was really hard. But still, we were so much better than other people who were in the poor areas, who they were suffering so much, and even like it was more destruction and dangerous there. Yeah. Last summer, after working with refugees, I wanted to do something because we had a very strong winter, Last winter we had 13 cases in a week for dying people because of cold, not because of hunger, not because of weapons, just because of cold. 13, including 8 children. So I decided that I should do something because I was working with refugees also, and I knew how it is, and I knew how much those people need. So I made a campaign, but I'm sorry, I have misunderstanding here with the fundraising here. I see like people do some runs and people like sometimes do some events, or I don't understand the type of fundraising here. It's really strange for me because yeah, I don't see the point of if somebody run from Exeter to Colchester that he raised. I don't know, it's weird for me because I'm different. Yeah, so for me, I raised actually $15,000 by phone calls because people knew that I was working with refugees, people knew that I trustworthy, people knew that I know that those people think are going to the right people, and I was describing what's going on. They just like, okay, I'll give you whatever. People around the world, from my friends, my contacts, so I could raise $15,000, and I wish that I could learn how to raise money here in the UK because that would be really amazing. But I could run from here to Exeter if I had to. Yeah, so we made not only me, we made a campaign to fundraise to give clothes for people, and we bought around that was $15,000 bill for pajamas for children and pads and clothing, winter clothing and so on. This picture shows some statistics about the children of Syria. There's like it's from UNICEF, source is UNICEF. It's like 5.7 million children of Syria have been affected by the crisis, whether financially or by their losing family members or losing education. There are like 380,000 refugees in Turkey, and those are the numbers around Syria. And Lebanon has more than Turkey refugees, and people really having a serious problem in Lebanon because there's some political problems between Syria and Lebanon, and it's reflecting all on refugees. I remember the last event, there were like fight between the Lebanese army and there's a camp for Syrian refugees just because ISIS attacked the Lebanese army. So the refugees has nothing to do, but they just don't understand. Still, actually, they say that the Lebanese army is the third strongest army in Lebanon. But yeah, we had a lot of problems, and in Iraq they had already their problems, but still they could take 90,000 refugees and like 10,000 children killed. I mean, I feel really bad when I say these numbers because yeah, it looks like they're just numbers. I mean, 5.7 million children is something really like it's so massive even to think about it. But I mean, when I look at this picture, I just see numbers. That's all. I mean, I don't want to drive into any political agenda, but I remember when in Canada there was like issue happened where 2 people died, and I don't want to talk about the reasons, about agenda, about anything. And then in France, like there's 12 people died, and like in the US or whatever, the whole world like talks about it, and oh my God, I don't care about the agenda or the political reasons behind this. But I mean, when like 10,000 children are being killed, and the world like yeah, we just should support them, and they like yeah, turn to another thing, or I don't know. I don't think that it really makes sense for me. I don't know about you, but yeah, could you? Me and my friends were harassed by all people, like by the government and by the rebels and by the refugees themselves, because the refugees thought that we were hired by the government to serve them because they're uneducated. I mean, we could understand that easily because they're uneducated, they don't have consciousness or awareness yet. And the government, when we collect donations, they thought that we are supporting rebels, and the rebels were attacking us because we are still living in the government's areas, so we should go and live them. So we were really struggling with all, and I remember one of the people came to take food, and I couldn't give him because if I had to give him, that would be a really big problem for me by the government because he's against the government. And he said, you should worry about your life in the next 3 days. He said that he was serious. Yeah, I mean, and when somebody says it here, you might think that he's joking. Oh yeah, alright, I'll do that. But when somebody says it there, that means really it's something serious. Yeah, so I could manage it somehow. I'm still alive. And the refugees always used to complain and attack and say like, you're being paid to serve me, why don't you do it well? We tried to educate them, we tried to give them wearing sessions, and I already mentioned that, but they just cared about the food and blankets, and because like they're missing the basics, we couldn't give them some like high education or something. And they were volunteers from all backgrounds, from industry backgrounds, educational backgrounds, and all of them are my friends. Some of them still in Syria, some of them traveled. But the main problem that not only volunteers, all the youth are suffering there, that they have to be, they're called for military service, which if they are over 18 and they have a brother, they should go to serve the military. So most of them are going out of the country for no reason, for nowhere, just because they don't want to go to fight. Because they don't know who are they fighting, and they don't know when they get killed, they don't know who's right, who's wrong, what's the end of this, they don't know anything, so they just leave out. And at the same time they have a mystery future, they don't know what are they going to work, when are they going to marry, where are they going to live. And I mean, like some people left their university in the 3rd year and traveled abroad. Now they don't have qualification, they don't have a job experience, they don't have anything. They just left because they didn't want to go to military. And of course they're not safe as everyone else, especially the youth between 20 and 30, because like you could easily be stopped by any border on the street and they just tell you, I want to take your car, I want to take like your money. I remember once I was going back from the kitchen, I was driving my car, it was like 9 o'clock, and one of the guys stopped me and he said like, you should come with me because it's too late and you should not be out. And he absolutely wanted to steal my car and my money, my mobile. And then I offered him money, but he couldn't take. And then he told me, what do you work? And I told him I work for that kitchen. And by chance, he knew the CEO of the organization that I'm working with. He said like, yeah, I'll let you go. So yeah, it was by chance. But yeah, a lot of people could have that simply. Nobody can ask where are they. Even you don't know, you can't know where are they. The volunteers or youth generally like are being pressured from all sides, from their family, from their friends, from their study, from their work, future stuff. So it's like really so much pressure. Yeah, and most of the youth people like, I mean, for me, the reason I came here, not because I want to travel abroad or to see a new country. I already came to UK in 2010 and 2006 to learn English. But I came here because I knew that I don't like computer science. I just went to computer science because more socially accepted. I know it's a mistake, but yeah, I didn't need it. So I came here to study IT management in order to do something I like. If I wanted to work, I'm going to achieve a better degree, and if I wanted to apply for UN organization, I can work because I graduated from a good university, high rank. Yeah, but I could come because I could afford it, but other people, like not other people, majority of people won't afford it, even if they were wealthy, because there's much more important things to do. I mean, yeah. Now, people started to think about, after all our mentioned, people started to think about migration. It seems that this is the only reason or the only solution for all the problems we're having. Like, all the people started to talk, if you migrate to Sweden or to Norway, to anywhere, you get $1,100 a month. You get long-term residency papers, you have your safety, and after 5 years you get nationality. And yeah, it's really helpful. The nationality one is really helpful because I'm Syrian. When I applied to come to study at the UK, they refused my visa at the beginning, and I didn't know why. And when I saw the objection, they said that you're coming to ask for migration here in the UK, and it's not. We don't think that you're a student. Until now, I didn't ask for migration, but yeah. And then I objected on the refusal, and then I said, how come I'm coming to ask for migration? And I showed you university acceptance, I showed you my IELTS test score, I showed you my bank account details, I showed you, like, why would I come to ask for migration if I have already these things? I could easily, like, come illegally to the UK, which, like, I'm going to describe earlier. I'm going to describe in a bit. So people start to migrate to Turkey, Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt, Iraq, surroundings, as we mentioned already, as refugees, as like migrants, or as job seekers, whatever. And after, some of them, when this is the second level, when they reach Turkey, they go to Greece through sea, and this is really dangerous issue because like every day around 100 or 80 people die from drowning in the sea. And yeah, it's also again just numbers. I mean, I'm imagining 80 people are dying a day. Yeah, unfortunately it comes into number. Or they could buy fake passports, which I could do, and I also said it in my objection. I could just buy a fake passport for $10,000. I knew when I was in Turkey, I knew that there's Syrian people who, or not Syrian, Syrian or in Greek people who used to work in this. Like they provide you a fake passport with your picture on it, a European one or British, and you pay 10,000 and then you travel and nobody catches you out. But now recently, the EU is complaining about it so much, so they're like objecting to Turkey and to Greece to stop this and to make more security. So yeah, even when I was in the airport, after I got the visa, I came through British Airways and I showed it to the employee and he said, oh wait, I need to check because this might be fake. I said, oh come on, it's not fake. Just because I'm Syrian, it's not fake. I mean, it's not, yeah, I just wanted to say I don't want to go to the UK anymore, just take passport. I'm going back to Syria because it was really horrible and I was really offended. But the good thing is I had 5 kilos extra, and then he saw that I was getting offended, he just let me go without making anything, so yeah. And, sorry. And there's another way also to go there. People could go through Algeria, Libya, and then to Italy, and from Italy to Europe. Actually, people don't like to ask for migration in Italy, or in France, or in Belgium, because they don't give too much support for the refugees. So I think Sweden is the most place where people would head to. So like there's recently, I think, more than 100,000 Syrians in Sweden, and recently they start to make that joke, like they say like there's no place like home, and Syrians are saying there's no place like Sweden. Yeah. Actually, all Syrian refugees who went to Sweden, to Norway, to Europe, or to America even, tend to be more working people than like just sitting and depending on the aid and the money that they're taking. I mean, one of the people who traveled to Sweden through sea was my cousin, and he was so crazy. He went with his wife, with his 3 children on a ship, and they just drowned the ship before reaching there in 15 minutes. So that the police could come and take them, and it was really horrible. He told me that he was crazy. He paid 50,000 euros in order to reach to Sweden. Yeah, that was really dangerous. But at the same time, if we thought about it, like we can't blame him because he's not safe in his hometown anyway. He doesn't have work like he used to have work. I mean, I come from pretty wealthy family, but not anymore. But he was very good, in good position, like financially and socially, and yeah. So he just decided to leave everything behind and go to Sweden, because he can't take the dangers anymore. He said like, I'll take the risk for one time, rather than living it every day. So you just think about it. It's controversial if those people are the ones to blame or not. Yeah. So this cousin has a child, like 6th grade, and he was the first on his class, even though he went to a completely foreign country with a foreign people, with a foreign language, and he was really unique between them. And there's also one of my friends, he's called Sidki Imam. He is a designer, and he was one of the best 13 Scandinavian designers. After he got the Swedish residency, he became a Scandinavian, and he was ranked as one of the best 13 Scandinavian designers in 2014. Now, most people think that all the people, like I can say 80% of the people are thinking about migration to other countries because it seems that the only solution. I mean, Turkey city, there's a Gaziantep, is so close to Aleppo, and now it has more Syrians than Turkish people, and it's really, it's really so bad for Turkish people, because, I mean, I put myself as a Turkish person, I wouldn't like people, like maybe I could take up with them like for 1 month, 2 months, or a year, but not 4 years. It's really, and there's a lot of problems there. And yeah, there was some conflict between Turkish people and Syrian people, but I mean, if we thought about it at the same time, Syrian people doesn't have another solution. I mean, they can't stay under the bombs and they can't stay in Turkey because, yeah, now Turkey opened the biggest refugees camp for Syrians that contains around 350,000, I think, refugees. it's good news, but at the same time, when you think about these numbers, like it's 350,000 dreams and 350,000 souls, people, like, yeah. So, some people have this stereotype about migration. It's so difficult and it's so risky, but once you reach there, then you are fine. And you can start up your life easily, and you can build yourself. Yeah. And here's some statistics about the refugees in Europe. Actually, Germany is doing pretty well because Germany is accepting all the master students that they're applying for master in German universities. And I didn't hear any one of my friends who applied for Germany and got refused. Then it comes France, but I think Sweden over France. I don't know. I'm not sure about the source, but I think Sweden comes right after Germany directly. And I'm not sure also about the UK, but yeah, it's mentioned here somehow, with Italy. And those countries are the poor countries, which that's why the people don't like to go there. Netherlands, not a poor country, but I think it's hard to go there. But yeah, it's not likely for people. People would prefer Sweden and Germany to go to that immigration. Yeah. I will be happy to answer if anybody have questions about what I already mentioned. If you have any questions.
Yeah. Where is your charity now?
The charity is a local NGO. It's still working there, and it deals with UNICEF and UNHCR and WFP, all the UN organizations. Yeah, and they're now making a program for teaching youth who lost their education. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. I think that deserves a round of applause, really.
You mentioned that the chap wrote a report about you.
Pardon?
You said that somebody wrote a
yeah.
report about you to the government.
Yeah.
What was the motive behind that? It was his job to do that, to identify people? Was he with the security services, with the Syrian government, or what?
Actually, there's so many possibilities, but I really completely understand this guy because this guy was really in a big trauma, and he married when he was 17 and his wife was 15, and he married a wife which he didn't know, and she was, I don't know how to say it in English, but she didn't have a mother or father, she was just in some place. And yeah, she cheated on him, and yeah, he's very his personality is so complicated. So I could understand him, and at the same time, once you write a report about the person, you get a lot of money about that because you're doing something good for the government. So we preferred the money on our friendship, because I was actually friends with all the employees. I didn't treat them as a manager because I knew that they were refugees. Yeah.
Is it quite hard to stay kind of an impartial figure? Does it feel like lots of the militias and different government groups are, maybe especially for a young male, trying to get you on board?
Well, actually, yeah, it's quite hard because now I think there's over than 8 areas on the ground, like between ISIS and the Nusra and the regime, the rebels, and there's also the Front Islamic line, something like that, and they're all fighting, and they're all wrong. Really, they're all wrong. Nobody knows about it. I think especially the ones who pretending they're doing something in the name of Islam. I think those people just took whatever they saw and they're just applying it in a completely wrong way. They're just like killing people and threatening people, kidnapping people. It's going really bad there. Yeah, and I think any Syrian, if you ask him when it's going to finish, he says like, I wouldn't even expect it because it's so hard. Because the problem there is like a lot of sects and like Kurds, Armenian, and Christians, Muslims, a lot of religions, and you can't put them together again after this. And all of the people wishing that these events didn't happen from the beginning. Even the people who started it, they're thinking that they shouldn't have done that, but now,
So presumably you've got a student visa at the moment. What are you going to do when your student visa runs out or you finish your course? What's going to happen then?
Well, actually, I'm planning to go back to Turkish border and work with one of the UN organizations. Yeah, that's my goal, because I told you I was a completely different person, and after I changed, I thought I felt how valuable it is to improve others' lives. And regarding to my visa, I applied for the first time I applied to the university for a scholarship or discount for my fees, because I'm paying international fees. It's like 17,000 pounds. Yeah, that's a lot of money. Yeah, 17,500. And I applied in the first term, and I told them that I want to donate in half of the money to a UN organization and give you the receipt so you can make sure that I donated. I'm not taking the money for myself. And yeah, because I feel guilty to pay that much of money, and at the same time there's children who are missing even education. But the university refused, and I insisted again, and they refused. But yeah, this term I told them that there's something related with our factory, because our factory that I just told you about was burnt and stolen, and actually also they wanted me and my cousin as like we were wanted in their list. Yeah, but I'm here anyway, so let them get me. Yeah, so I just applied this term for another scholarship, and I'm still in the process of that. And one of my friends suggested that I ask for migration. But actually it's very confusing for me, because my mom is still in Syria and I don't know if I can apply for that. And even if I applied, the employee who refused me for the first time said that I'm going for immigration, now she will be right, and I don't want her to be right. Yeah, she was so offensive to me, even in the interview. I remember that in the interview she was saying, and so you're Syrian, and where did you get the money from? And I said, well, oh, I stole it.